NetJets, the worldwide private aviation leader, is known for exceptional service, for personalizing every detail and elevating every flight. Because NetJets standard is not just to meet their definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours. All by providing the custom, curated luxury experiences you deserve. Explore NetJets premium travel solutions at netjets.com.
Hello, EggChasers. It's the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, the podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. Back in the rugby dungeon, as we are 52 weeks of the year, every Monday morning for very nearly 10 years. While everyone else is, well, sunning themselves, we're down in the rugby dungeon, sweating cobs to bring you a fix of rugby.
Exactly right.
I'm Tim, that's JB.
Hello, Tim.
OnlyFans, feet ready, and Phil.
Hello, Tim.
Wearing some. I've been admiring all evening your retro
nice, aren't they?
Adidas sneaks.
Yeah, these classic gazelles.
Yeah,
they're all right, aren't they?
Very nice, very nice. You well, gents?
Yes. Well, yeah. I'm enjoying the sun. Enjoying my CrossFit and enjoying the sun.
Wouldn't you say, Phil, that JB's gone for less of a Sam Burgess rugby vest and more of a Chopper Reed?
Yes, Rubsy Nesbitt, Chopper Reed.
Great combo.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so, Tim.
It's so hot, though.
It is hot.
This is the only thing I was trying on every T-shirt that I own today to work out which ones can go in the bin and which ones. I couldn't take them off. I was sweating so much. Everything was just sticky and. Ugh.
I made a mistaken call to go for a run about 4 p.m. yesterday, and it was horrible.
Tell you what,
too damn hot.
In the summer, getting into your 6 a.m. workout routine is a gem. Because I couldn't work out in this heat.
Oh, it's the best time to work out.
Without doubt.
Yeah. At this point, it's the only time of the day that it's okay.
Yeah.
10 degrees, 12 degrees.
For our American listeners, who we have many, or people from far-flung parts, Australia and whatever, who are thinking, yeah, it's England. Like, 24 degrees and you're going mad. You don't have to deal with what we have to deal with. Yeah, you have air conditioning units.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, global warming. I'm running my car extra hot just to make sure it is a little warmer in the winter. I quite like it.
Right, on this podcast, we're going to be getting into the top 14 playoffs. We've got our finalists now. So some brilliant games this weekend there. Same goes for the playoffs in Super Rugby. We've got an England wider training squad ahead of the World Cup going to be announced. One of the last, I think it might even be the last of the major nations to name a wider training squad. And, well, various other things going on around the game. You can contact us, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. There's some emails which I'll pepper through. Some brilliant emails again, which keep on coming, so do keep that going. And you can support the podcast, keep the lights on, show your appreciation for the fact we're there for you every single Monday morning for nearly 10 years, 52 weeks of the year, no breaks. It's patreon.com/eggchasers, where we will. I only just found out from JB that a Patreon podcast that we did about
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, you didn't even.
But it's probably best to delay it because it was quite a heated one.
It was a little bit, yeah, that's fair.
It's a little bit spicy, isn't it?
It is a bit spicy.
And the topic of it will amaze you what we have to go through to get this podcast out.
Yeah, okay, so there was that little slight spiciness, and then we'll add a little bit more spiciness on top with another little quick Patreon pod that
I would like to talk about that topic on the pod. Maybe we'll do both. Maybe we'll touch on it.
Maybe we'll touch on it at the end, and then we can use that as a springboard.
We'll go wild.
We'll go wild, yeah. Shackles off with friends who won't cancel us. Right. England squad. So apparently Steve Borthwick's going to name a 55-man training squad. This is, a good 22 people more than his Six Nations squad, and 22 more than will be going to the World Cup. But the World Cup squad is going to be drawn from these 55 names, you would imagine. So just quickly, who do you want to see that's a new face or an uncapped and peripheral face? Who do you want to see or expect to see, hope to see in that squad?
A brand new face would be Joe Carpenter. And do you know what? Why not bring in Gus Waugh? Those would be my two.
Okay, I like that.
Carpenter, I'd have no complaints seeing him in the squad. Gus Waugh, I think there's just too much depth. I don't see him
on scrum half, though. Ben Spencer, I hope, is back. There's talk in the Telegraph today that Danny Care's back.
That'd be cool.
Which would be cool.
Danny Care would be cool.
He's great.
I think you've got some really good options. So Van Portfleet and Alex Mitchell are 1 and 2.
Quirk.
Quirk would be number 3 for me.
Same.
Although he's not been able to get ahead of Gus Waugh since he's come back from injury. Although
Yeah.
I think that's more a Styles make matchup type situation. I think he's all round a better player than Gus Waugh, but he's got to earn the shirt.
There are often players who are not the best player in a position. The classic one would be Dan Biggar. So Dan Biggar, from the age of 19, was absolutely smashing it out the park with much bigger names everywhere, and he just carried on holding on to that shirt.
But there's bigger names, but there's also better players. So like Dan Biggar, I think he's all round during his.
Now he's amazing, but like
during
when he
his
was developing,
when he won the shirt, and for the longest time when he was the first choice number 10, I don't think there was many better players. He was competing against like Reece Priestland and.
Well, it was James Hook and it was Gavin Henson at the start of his career.
Yeah, but that's when he was kind of coming through, not when he won the number 1 jersey.
Yeah, true.
And there's an overlap between their decline and his.
So
rise.
I was thinking more because they were all young at the same time. So they were all sort of. He's just outlived them all because he's far more professional and turns out a better.
And he
player.
has improved and improved and improved.
And he's about 8 years younger than James Hook and Gavin Henson.
I bet he's not. You know.
I don't know.
I think I'm going to say I'm going to put it out there. I think he's 4 years younger than Gavin Henson.
Wow, I'd be amazed at that.
4 or 5 years. Yeah, Gavin Henson is.
I'd say Gavin Henson's like 42, 43 now.
I reckon he's 40, and I reckon Dan Biggar's what, 30?
34.
32, 33.
Maybe 6 years on. Here we go.
So
Feels
Gavin
like our
Henson,
Jamie from the Joe Rogan podcast.
Gavin Henson, 41. Dan Biggar, 33. So 8 years, exactly
There
as I
you go,
said.
then. Take it back. But James Hook is younger than Gavin Henson.
He is. Hook is 38. 30. Yeah.
Interesting. He's the same
Hook
age as
is
Johnny
38.
Sexton.
So he's 5 years older.
Same age as Johnny Sexton. Christ, he's been out of the game for 2
Well, Johnny
years.
Sexton's 37, is he? He will be 38.
I think he's 38 this year,
Yeah.
Johnny Sexton.
Yeah. So that's scrum half we kind of touched on. Other names that you'd like to see? I'm hoping at hooker we see a few interesting names. I like Jamie Blamire, George McGuigan, the guys that have had caps before or been involved before. I just want to see...
McGuigan got injured last year, didn't he, when he moved to Gloucester?
Yeah, he came back towards the end of the season,
Did he?
so he's fit again now.
Good.
So I imagine he will be back in.
Yeah.
There must be something, and again, what Steve Borthwick and Eddie Jones and whatever have forgotten about rugby is more than I'll ever know.
Untrue.
So they must know something. But like Harry Thacker, I just
Thacker, well, the guy you bought at Saracens, who
Theo Dan, love him.
Theo Dan,
another guy.
decent
I
player.
think he will be in.
yeah.
He'd be a good shout. Yeah, I like Jack Walker at Quins. I know he's Yorkshire, Carnegie initially, Bath, and then he kind of struggled. I think he's done well at Quins.
I think he's done well at Quins as well.
I think he's a good shout. I think first choice two will still be Jamie George and LCD.
Dan Kelly must be in with a big shout.
Yeah, surely.
That must be a guy that they want.
Dan Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, centre. Yeah, Dan Kelly, definitely. I reckon Seb Atkinson will get called up to the wider training squad.
Atkinson's a good shout. I definitely we're bouncing around all over the place. He's definitely been in a squad before, but not played. I don't think. Tom Pearson.
Oh yeah,
he needs to be. I mean, Cocker's Law gets challenging because there's a lot of options at back row, but I think he has to be in there.
I'd have him above. I love these two players, but I'd have him above Sam Simmons and Ben Earl.
It's interesting, right? Because
probably, yeah.
It's difficult to pick, isn't it? It's difficult to pick just on name value. Like, what have they done with their clubs? Pick a team now. I think once you get them into camp, just let them compete, let them beat each other up, see how they go in the warm-ups, and then make some tough decisions.
Yeah.
So you see whoever your best is.
You want to see if they're test match animals? Is that what you're saying, JB?
Yeah. Well, who said that before?
I think I just created it myself. Actually,
that's very good. Well, this is my feeling about Gus Waugh. That he won a spot against England's most coveted young scrum half.
Quirky.
So what might happen if you put him against all of England's most coveted scrum halves?
I saw Rafi Quirk must live in Chorlton.
You live somewhere around here?
Because I saw him. I saw him walking past Mary and Archie's the other day. I said I wouldn't chat about what we talked about too much. All I say is I said, how was Marbs, mate? Because the whole sail team went off to Marbella straight after the final, which would have been amazing if they'd won. But anyway, and he went, fun.
Excellent.
And
what happens in Marbs?
I said, loose? And he went, He knows I'm a journalist. He's always a pro.
Yeah, Steve Diamond's old favourite holiday, or maybe current favourite holiday.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure Dimes loves it.
He loves mobs. I'm absolutely sure. Well, you don't get that talent from nowhere, do you? Sunbeds and mobs.
Another one you've been calling him for a while, Tim, and I'm sure he's been in a squad but never been capped unless he's been in like one of the Barbars games. Valrapava Ruskin.
Oh my goodness! Get that guy in.
Yeah, well, another Gloucester guy.
Yeah.
Would be, and it's more hope than anything else, but it's Mark Atkinson.
Be nice to see him back.
If he can get fit.
Yeah.
I suspect he won't be.
Yeah.
I suspect the ship has sailed for Mark Atkinson.
I think so.
But he's probably
no one can take that England cap away from him. That guy's played for England.
And he deserved it thoroughly as well.
Yeah.
Thoroughly. Because he was one of the best in the Premiership for years as well. Many years. Having kind of made it to the Premiership late comparatively.
Because people can be flippant about those sort of one-cap wonders and stuff, but he's got an England cap. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Definitely him. I'm looking for players that you can do something a little bit different, sprinkle a bit of X factor on top.
Basically, lots of Arundels.
Yeah, I want a bit more. I want a little bit of that. Not necessarily to start, but at this point.
Okay, well, what about Finn Smith?
I really like him.
I like Finn Smith.
Yeah,
really
Dingwall.
And he's Dingwall. I really like. I
Yeah.
think he's a very, very solid, capable all-round centre. Finn Smith is a good shout because I remember thinking of those kind of Midlands young up-and-coming fly halves. Initially, I preferred Charlie Atkinson.
Yes,
but Finn Smith is the one who's been getting the game time, obviously in different teams, but he's been getting far more game time. He's been trusted with that Northampton 10 shirt, and I thought it was quite telling for Charlie Atkinson that he didn't get the when Andre Pollard got injured. That it was Gopeth.
Well, he's also injured.
Called up.
Atkinson's...
He was on the bench for the final, wasn't he?
Yeah, but for the final.
For the final,
yes,
yeah,
maybe. But he was injured, I think, for the majority of the season, which is why he wasn't taking over. But Tigers haven't got rid. He's left because of the end of his contract. They've lost Gopeth.
Yeah.
Do you know who they've got as their third choice fly half now?
Ooh. I do not.
God, I love talking about third choice fly halves.
Pollard, Atkinson, and
Dan Cole.
Kieran Wilkinson.
Oh, the former Sale.
Yeah, which I think is a decent little pickup, that. So they're pretty stacked at fly half should they need any cover. So, yeah, nice pickup.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, it's not like having Ford and the world's best fly half.
Yeah.
So,
I'm expecting Daly to be back in the fold again.
definitely Daly.
Daly should be. Although his final was a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Positives and negatives. But yeah, he should be back.
He was the best player in the league in the first. Him and Theo from McFarland for the first half.
Well, he works so well with Farrell. I think the guy who's hoping most for Daly to come back will be Farrell because they just know each other's game and they work so well together. He is the cutting edge that Farrell needs for his pragmatism. So, yeah, he will be... In the same way, he hates Ben Spencer. He loves Daly.
There was a move, it's about 3-4 years ago, a very early move, like first 2 minutes against Ireland, which included an unbelievably flat miss pass down the left-hand side. It might have been miss 2. It might even been a miss 3 from Faz to Daly breaking down the left-hand touchline. It's a thing of beauty, if you can find that.
Well, the thing is with Daly, I mean, it feels like he's been doing Daly stuff for years now. He probably has been around for a decade or so.
He's probably 30.
Yeah. So he's a magnificently talented attacking player. But when you are that explosive and that quick, time will catch up with you. So I just hope he's the same player he was before his injury. And if he's not, I think that's when you replace him with an Arundel. I see a lot of similarities actually between Arundel running from deep and Daly running from deep back in the day. Because Daly was doing the same stuff. Just getting the ball and scoring.
Oh, Arundel's going to be on the bench in England's...
Depends how well he does in camp. I mean, I think by the time that first 15 gets selected for that first game in the World Cup, it will be very different to the last Six Nations because that Six Nations team was an inheritance from Eddie Jones. And this is going to be a brand new team that Borthwick actually gets to work with and pick and find out who he likes and implement his own systems. So I think we're going to look at a completely... I wouldn't be surprised if there's 7 or 8 changes.
From the Six Nations, yeah, but you're limited because of the the number of changes to the elite player squad.
Well, we don't know.
But
there hasn't been any official. That's what we understand to be the case. But there's never been any sort of categorical black and white answer to that.
I'm sure that it's been
on the numbers.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been formally. I'm sure it's 5.
Okay, yeah, I think
I'm sure there's been it's written within the elite player squad.
So this is ball through it with a blank bit of paper.
Well, I don't actually know. You'd hope so. The 55 is a blank bit of paper because it's. You could, in theory, take say 35, less 5, less any injuries, plus 20
if he
plus.
If he cannot treat a World Cup squad like a blank bit of paper,
it should be.
Then it's the system's
Here's
ridiculous.
a guy. You're gonna laugh now. You think I'm absolutely insane, but sometimes circumstance messes up your career. I think the guy who was really pushing for England, not recognition, but a training camp squad. Sorry, a training squad spot was Curtis Langdon, and because he went to Worcester, he's had no further rugby. But when he left Sale, he was ripping up trees. He was absolutely great. And since he's left Sale, he's had no real rugby. He's gone over to Montpellier, can't play. He's coming back to Northampton. We've not seen anything from him because, of course, Northampton haven't played.
Yeah, good player.
But that is a guy I'd like to have seen.
Speaking of people in France, there was
Zach Mercer will be the other name that's involved.
Zach Mercer, and there was a brace of brothers getting experience of the top 14 semi-finals. One who was in the Six Nations squad, and one who could be in the wider squad.
Tom and Jack.
Yeah, Tom Willis.
He'll be involved.
You could do worse than putting Tom Willis into that squad.
Yeah, definitely.
You could do a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
But as for Nations, another head coach who has got a blank bit of paper, but basically because he's got no players he can put on it, is Warren Gatland at the minute.
The names getting rubbed out every single day, it seems.
So we were up in the kitchen, and you started telling me about this. I wasn't really aware of what was going on, so go for it.
Well, just apparently Warren Gatland might have to send an SOS for Jake Ball because
Jake Ball's in Australia, isn't he?
Because he doesn't have any locks. So Alan Wynne-Jones, although I suspect Alan Wynne-Jones did it when it was on his own terms because he was expecting the inevitable, or maybe even got a nudge from Gatland, like your maybe 4th or 5th choice, perhaps, if you're lucky. But Corey Hill has said no, not interested. There's so the contenders for the World Cup spot: Adam Beard, Will Rowlands, Dafydd Jenkins. That's basically it. Unless you
Adam
count
Beard, Will Rowlands. Okay, good. Okay, so far,
and Dafydd Jenkins, which is fine,
decent,
but that's it.
Then
they're struggling. You've got novices.
Christians.
I think they count him as a back row more than a lock.
He's also a liability at this point.
Yeah.
And Dafydd Jenkins is those two, Chris T and Dafydd Jenkins, huge potential. They're not there yet. You wouldn't want them going against Lud and Etzebeth, for example.
No, you would not, would you?
Not really. Or Retallick and Whitelock.
Nope, wouldn't want that.
So again, this is kind of Gatland's laws biting Wales in the ass now, and there's players who are saying, "No, I'll forego being for the World Cup because I don't have to come and play for a Welsh team." Yeah,
rightly so. So I can't really think of any. I mean, Jake Ball. I'm sure he is in Australia. Have I made that up?
I think he's in Japan.
Yeah.
This is according to Wikipedia.
I think the thought is that he could come back.
Oh my word! I mean, great player 5 years ago. I mean, not great player, a player. He was a player 5 years ago.
Yeah, he's only 31.
What?
Surprisingly.
Oh, no, that's wrong. Sorry, he finds himself eligible again now because the cap rule has been reduced. That's what it is. Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was expecting Jake Ball to be 35, 36. Nope, 31.
Crikey. Right, okay.
Yeah, tough paper round.
Yeah, I don't know who else I'd call up. I don't know enough about Welsh rugby, so maybe someone...
Will Rowlands is a very good player.
He's not a world-class lock.
No. And
not by a long way. Beard, maybe.
Beard is very unique. He's a hell of a player defending the rolling maul.
Seb Davis? Is he still a thing?
Is he a lock? He's back row, isn't he?
I think he's a lock.
So look at him.
Anyway, so they're struggling a little bit, so watch this space, I guess, is the headline there. I'm trying to think what other...
He's big enough to be a lock.
He certainly is.
Lock Blythe, like 6'6", 119 kg.
Yeah, good
That
enough.
is big enough.
Take him.
Yeah.
I got no idea. Take whoever you want. I don't care.
You just mentioned the Willis brothers. Let's touch on them. Unfortunately, it is not going to be a Jack v Tom final.
It's not.
It's a bit of a shame.
Did you see any of the semi-finals?
Highlights.
Highlights of both games.
I watched most of the Toulouse.
Oh, you managed to get
Viaplay.
Viaplay working.
How did I
You had Viaplay working last week. They just didn't show the game.
No, so I don't know what email I've used to buy Viaplay. I just know it bills me, so I can't get on the app. But it was on Daily Motion, the entire Toulouse versus Racing game. So I watched it there. So a few interesting things of note. My boy, who I've now forgotten his name, is playing 8th for Racing, which means he's incredibly valuable. What the hell's his name? Black guy plays lock.
Joseph? No.
How do I not? Cameron Wacky.
Oh, Wacky.
Who I absolutely adore. I think he's one of the best players on the planet. So, as far as I can see, he is primarily a flanker, but so valuable that France play him at lock, and now he can also play 8.
General dominator.
General dominator. Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. But he wasn't brilliant enough because he got absolutely spanked.
They did get spanked.
They got absolutely ruined.
So it was 34-0. Toulouse should have made it 41-0, but through an intercept, and Racing got off the mark with Fickou. And then they scored another consolation try late on.
The first 30 minutes were pretty close.
This is an absolute beatdown. I've only seen the highlights, and the highlights made it look like, well, as it was sequentially, Toulouse try, intercept. And it's already game over by that point.
So Lebel goes over the first one, but prior to that, it's kind of like, it wasn't like, he is so fast.
Yeah.
Has he got any French caps?
Yes, definitely capped.
He is seriously rapid.
Mathieu
Like the
Lebel.
way he runs those lovely angles between players, and he's fast enough to get away with it.
He is fast.
Yeah, I don't seem to remember him in any French squads in the Six Nations.
I'm just looking up now. I'm absolutely certain he's capped.
Emmanuel Mayarfit, by the way, is just a freak.
Matisse,
Yes.
five caps for France.
And do you know the guy that I also really like? Is it the winger for Racing, who is
Taufifenua?
I love him. He can really play.
Yeah.
Although didn't really play much, to be fair.
There was a photograph doing the rounds earlier this week of, because the weather's been lovely, Julien Marchand on the training pitch in a vest.
Oh.
My goodness me. That guy is an unbelievable nick.
Yeah, so Marchand's excellent.
Marchand is an excellent player.
His opposite number didn't have a great game.
Camille Chat.
It'll always live with me that when me and Phil were in Japan and we're in Fukuoka, eating basically entrails of any animal that they were serving, and drinking beer, talking to a Frenchman, and he described watching Camille Chat's line-out throwing as launching pizzas. And it is absolutely true. Camille Chat was launching pizzas everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. That Racing pack is not good enough. You know, for all the money that they spend on Finn Russell and maybe Harry Arundel. Who else are they linked with? They're linked with someone else.
Marcus Smith.
Marcus
Smith, yeah. But Trevor Nyakane will not be cheap.
No, he will not be.
Cameron Woki,
and he's not that good.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, the scrum did not go well at all. Toulouse dominated them.
The Toulouse pack is a serious pack, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you think the top 14 are... Think of the top 14 as a seriously strong league in terms of depth, and it is. It definitely is. There are some great teams in there. But actually, it's the two teams that excelled in the European Cup which have risen to the top. So in that respect, it's a little bit predictable because those two teams are so far ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the constitution of this current side because everyone will be spending the money. But yeah, they are head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah, no, Toulouse have brought some talent through that is world class, like Dupont, like Intermat.
Not Dupont.
Oh, he wasn't, was he?
Yeah, he was at Cast.
Yeah.
Which isn't far. And he grew up wanting to play for Toulouse. But
we all grew up wanting to play for Toulouse, too.
Yeah, true.
Not many of us didn't.
Was Ramos a local boy?
I think he was. Tell you who wasn't a local boy, and it always surprised me, is Jojon. Jojon was brought into Toulouse at a young age.
There's actually a big gravity of these teams. Yeah, Ramos was Toulouse.
Fickou at Toulouse?
Oh God,
I have a feeling he was before he went to
There's so much change in.
Yeah, I think Fickou was, and then he went to Stade Francais, and Stade Francais to Racing.
Toulouse, 2012 to 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. there is an enormous... Because I don't actually know, but one would assume, given the amount of movement within the league, that they don't have the same limits as the Premiership about taking players. Although the Premiership's is only they can't be marquee players.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah, maybe they do. Maybe they've got a much bigger cap, therefore they can pay more money.
Well, when a cap works, and it really works, you'll know because big players start to move. So when the English Premiership cap really starts working, you will see Mario Itoje moving, you will see Owen Farrell moving, you will see all these big players. Now, they're a little different because, arrangements. But you are starting to see players move about a bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like a total beatdown, like you say. The other game was a little bit more even, but still, La Rochelle showed their class.
It looked more even in the end, but it was still...
Yeah.
It was 21-3, and it was kind of done. And there was a couple of consolation tries towards the end.
But the attendance for the two
I was about
games...
to say that.
Wow.
Yeah, the Toulouse game, which I watched, it felt like an occasion. I mean, that's a semi, and the Premiership would be happy for that, for their final. I mean, they'd be delighted if they had that as a final. It was a great, the atmosphere, the spectacle, the whole lot. It's just different league now. It's incredible. And you compare the French top 14 this week to what we saw in the Southern Hemisphere. Again, empty seats, half-full stadiums. It's the only league that's even worth talking about, I feel. I mean, there's some good rugby to be seen, but in terms of the excitement and the spectacle, there's only one league in town now.
I am going to pay a subscription to whoever is reliably, if Viaplay carry on doing this, play it the next day and don't actually put it live, but I will pay a subscription to anyone who reliably puts the top 14 on TV next season.
Yeah. I think a UK broadcaster would be smart to ditch the Premiership now and get top 14.
I don't know about that. I still think that was it's incredibly it'll be incredibly niche.
Yeah, because you won't have to pay much for it in the UK as well, because there'll be very few people competing for it.
Or I might just pay for a VPN and get Canal Plus.
Are you allowed to say that with your job?
If you pay for Canal Plus,
are you allowed to? VPNs, they're not illegal.
Well,
I don't.
As long as you're not using it to do an illegal streaming site.
No, I would never do an illegal streaming
No, you wouldn't.
site.
I mean,
But
you've been very explicit about that.
if you're
If I was
paying
doing
for
a VPN and paying for Canal Plus,
or whatever whatever's showing it in France,
that's all right, isn't
that'd
it?
be fine. Yeah,
Canal
yeah.
Plus.
Fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Of course it is. Someone's getting paid.
If it's not okay, then I wouldn't do it. Obviously.
Obviously. Letter of the law.
One thing that did happen. I mean, we talked about it enough last week, so we don't need to go into it. But the confirmation of what we expected to happen, the London Irish, done.
Incredibly sad.
Yeah, entirely predictable.
Do you know what really annoyed me about this?
Go on.
And I hate Tim won't enjoy this, but nevertheless. Why did they get ex-Premiership head of comms to do the comms for them when they had no intention of buying London Irish? What was the idea? Why was nothing communicated?
Well,
maybe they did have
more to the point,
some kind of loose ambition, but
can we just rewind a minute? So there's no doubt that RFU haven't been good custodians of English rugby at grassroots or the elite level for the impact they can have, and there's only so much they can do. Premiership Rugby, likewise, the owners of Premiership clubs. Can I just talk about London Irish for a second?
Yeah, sure.
What on earth were they doing signing the players that they signed for the money that they signed them? Let me just run you through a few. These are estimated. When I've put these numbers in years gone by to people, I haven't had anyone deny it, and I'm not saying these are factual, but Adam Coleman, £900,000 per year.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That is insane.
Yeah, Sean O'Brien when he was there, £450,000 per year.
That's amazing.
What are we talking? What's his name? Steve Maffey, £450k per year when he was there. And
Rob Simmons will be something similar.
And I'm all for spending up to the cap and stuff. And I don't actually, and we've talked about this many times, I understand, but I don't necessarily approve of the race to the bottom that Newcastle are currently doing, for example, which, fine, if there's no relegation, I don't blame them because the incentive's there to behave in that way.
Yeah.
But it's...
Well, we need to stop talking about Newcastle as a Premiership team. They're a team in the Premiership. They're not a Premiership team. On London Irish, I'm going to make the devil... Not devil. I'm going to advocate for them, right? And I think what they would say, or the logic, I think this is the general sports logic. Same as when Wasps went under, same as when Worcester went under, and like the week before they wanted to bring in a guy from New Zealand, a lot from New Zealand, right? I think they would say, we are in the sports business. Sports is entertainment. If we want to have any chance of making this work, we need people through the gates to come watch us.
Yeah.
So I know that Sale Sharks, for instance, have a number in their head of how many people need to go through those gates in order for them to break even. Mm-hmm. And I think London Irish would be thinking the same thing. Like, if we spend all this on players,
build it and they will come.
Yeah, build it and they will come. I seem to remember back in the day when Sale were in their first phase of success, when they won the Premiership, it did feel exciting. Now, I don't think they made any money, but it did feel exciting, and they built it, and people did show up. For whatever reason it is now, people are just not showing up, and I think it's because, well, rugby's been handled horrifically, the marketing isn't there. But also, I think if you live in London, you haven't got a clue who plays for London Irish. I just don't think think they register. I think if you lived in Manchester, very few people know that George Ford is here. Very few people. So
I'd say that very few people know who George Ford is.
Yeah, you might be right, actually. There again, everybody knew who Sebastian Chabal was.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like I'd be talking to people, because I work in financial services, right? And I'd be talking to people in town, also in financial services, who have no interest in rugby, but they knew who Sebastian Chabal was. Like,
yeah.
And, that's a fairly niche character to know. He wasn't even English.
But he was on the front of magazines and stuff, wasn't he?
Exactly.
And like the fronting up big marketing campaigns. Like, people know who Maro Itoje is probably because, is he the guy that did those Vitality little adverts before Sky Sports News?
Is he the one that wanted to give laptops to kids because Grift Nation told him to or something? Like, yeah. So there's obviously a massive disconnect between what rugby has on the field and trying to tell everyone how great it is. But,
So, yeah, that's sad tale. And I don't have a team, but if the team I had the biggest connection with and had a soft spot for was London Irish, because my brother played there, and I've always loved them as a club. So,
Wasps,
right mess.
Yeah, Wasps and Worcester, towards the end of their days, were not inspiring people at all on the field. Wasps occasionally, because they were very, very well coached. I mean, they were squeezing everything they possibly could out that squad in terms of style and in terms of talent. London Irish were a different kettle of fish altogether. They were brilliant. I mean, if you were a neutral and you wanted to watch some exciting rugby, you turn on London Irish and they were absolute quality.
Dynamite.
Yeah. And that was never sold. No one really. I'm not even sure people who like rugby knew how good London Irish were in the final years.
Well, this brings
final year.
Yeah, this brings me on to something which I just want to touch on, and there's a lot of revisionism going on from people at the minute.
Oh, please.
So
please,
I want to. So when did the Premiership CVC deal get signed? In 2018, wasn't it? The end of 2018.
Yeah,
early 2019.
about that. Yeah.
By all means, you can just take my word for it. By all means, if you want to go back and listen to old podcasts, that's brilliant. We'll get the hits, we'll get the advertising revenue. That's fantastic. Go and listen. But to save you a bit of time, let me summarise. JB, fair play, came out and said back then in December of 2018 and in the early parts of 2019 and consistently ever since, this is a disastrous deal that the Premiership have done. Mark my words, they will live to regret this and they won't have to wait too long. He said the same thing when the Six Nations deal was signed. And there's a lot of people I've noticed, and this is the bit that's frustrating me, there's a lot of people in the last week, if you pop on Twitter or see what people are saying or whatever, there's a lot of people with influential voices in rugby who are talking as if that is also the view that they always took. Monday morning quarterbacking it. And at some point, we've talked about this, we may well go back and just check what did they say at the time.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very, very... I suspect, I don't know because I haven't done that research yet, I suspect it's very, very different. All I do know is in the last week, suddenly, you would think that everyone was always against this CVC deal.
So, I'll tell you who was against the CVC deal in the top echelons of rugby. That'd be Simon Cohen from Leicester Tigers at the time.
At the time, he was Leicester Tigers.
In terms of the pundit class, from memory, I tell you who was definitely against. Well, not against it, but I'm pretty sure he said, "Do not spend this on players." It was Andy Good. right? And some of these clubs, to be fair to them, like Exeter, sunk it straight in, put it straight into new
Northampton
assets.
have got a brand new training centre outside Franklin's Gardens.
So, like,
sensible.
some people did do this. Now, is a training centre sensible? I mean, it's something, isn't it? At least it's something.
It's a long-term asset.
Yeah.
It's an asset.
Yeah.
But like, you need revenue-generating stuff like ASAP, because you're exchanging your income for capital, effectively, which is so stupid. I mean, it's so stupid. But people were saying they'd be tweeting things like, brilliant, finally, private equity wants a piece of rugby, experts in business.
I almost wish I hadn't said I'm going to go back and check, because I bet you some people will go back and delete what they said.
Yeah, I would delete.
I bet
if I was in
a load of
favour of it in
people-
any way. I mean, I always thought that maybe we'd come to a situation where you have a third-party owner, and that third-party owner would just whip everyone into shape because they're not into rugby, they don't have the historic connections, and there's a lot of money at stake for these people.
And they'd come in a cold fashion and say, why this makes no sense, why are you all pulling in those different directions, sacking you, and we're going this way.
So
I'm very happy to say, to be honest, I said I was optimistic about the deal at the time for two reasons. One, exactly what the point that you just made, Tim. Fresh pair of eyes. No one can be worse than the people that have been doing this for the last 20 years. But it turns out they are.
Do you know, weirdly, the most successful guy who was in charge of the Premiership was probably Mark McCaffrey, who presided over increasing TV deals year after year after year. Now, he leaves. I don't know where he went. Was he a consultant for the RFU? Or, I don't know. Don't care. Right. The business geniuses, which are CVC, the absolute titans of the world, their first move was to appoint Darren Childs as CEO of the Premiership. This man stood up and gave a rousing speech about the playing fields of Eton and how rugby originated there. I mean, the clue's in the name, right? The clue's in the name. And then they
just on that, who's the MP who gave a speech at opening the Rugby League World Cup by saying she loved Johnny Wilkinson's drop goal?
Yeah. Oh, Nadine Dorris.
Was it Nadine Dorris?
Good Lord. Yeah, but there is that too. And they keep all of the same incompetent individuals who just basically ran interference for Premiership Rugby. Darren Childs, from what I can tell, did not give a single interview in his whole tenure and presided over an absolute disaster.
Well, his biggest failing was the fact that there was no... He was so... he wasn't forthcoming at all during COVID.
No,
other than to say we will be the first sport back, and then we were.
Did he say that?
Yeah. That was what they were strong on. That we are putting plans in place. We'll be the first, and then it was like 2 months. Two months after everything, including motocross and.
I was talking to someone high up in rugby circles. It might have even been Bill Sweeney. He actually used to talk to me back in the day, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been on the phone to the." No, I wasn't talking to him. It was on an interview. And he said, we're on the phone to the Department of Sports, Media and Culture every day. I'm like, what? To receive your orders? Get the boys on the field and sort it out later? But this is how they work now. This is why we've got an independent consultant in government telling the Department of Sports, Media and Culture how rugby should be run, because they're completely dependent. They're incapable of making their own decisions. They should have, during COVID, just put the boys back on the field, dealt with the consequences later. They should have blazed the trail. Instead, they didn't.
Because it was pretty obvious to see they had to take loans in order just to survive.
Yeah.
And it was pretty obvious. Anyone, and I'll say anyone, fair play, you're a financial advisor and you saw it. You could see where this was heading. And there were other people, Mark Evans, Simon Cohen, like you say, there are others as well who saw the writing on the wall here. Had they done that, then these clubs may well still be operating. But it was the... You can say it was a straw that broke the camel's back, but it was a significant contributor to what we've now got.
But here's a scandal, right? I think this is a scandal. I genuinely think it's a scandal. So the Premiership did what the Premiership did because they were desperate. The best way to think of the CVC deal, the best way, is it's a deal by owners who wanted to maintain their power within the sport, who couldn't afford to be there. That's why they did it. They couldn't afford to be there, so it was a short-term fix, and they were living on a dream, thinking that CVC will come in and something will happen to turn around their fortunes. So they were unsuccessful without CVC, and it's been a disaster with CVC. So what the CVC deal does is it mortgaged the futures of the clubs because it means that the clubs are now uninvestable by future owners. Because previously what would have happened to London Irish or Wasps or Worcester is someone would have come in and said, yeah, we'll take on this because, it's just a normal sports team, it's just a normal sports club. But now they've got this CVC weight around its neck. So if someone's interested, it's going to be the Colin Goldrings who are going to find some, almost fraudulent way, and I don't know if they committed fraud or not, so I might not use that word, but some way to make money out of a club which has nothing to do with rugby.
Yeah, for the other assets.
Yeah.
The other assets.
That's what will happen.
Other than that, someone's going to wait, as you've said previously, until it sinks as low as it possibly can and then buy the whole lot up.
Well, I don't even think anyone would be interested. CVC would never buy the whole lot up because they'd be completely against their business plan. They really do not want that. But the real scandal is, after seeing this, look, I'm in a basement in Manchester, right? It's not like I'm in the inside of boardrooms or anything like that. And I can see that this is an absolute disaster, right? The RFU are in boardrooms and they do have connections. And then they copied the deal that the Premiership had already done. And they did it about 2 years after. So this week, Francis Barron,
former CEO of England Rugby,
has written a report, and I assume, I didn't know who the report was destined for. It seems to be for Rugby Paper.
I know, I think the Rugby Paper just did what you did and editorialised what he said. So Francis Barron has come out, and basically it's good to move it on because the Premiership CVC deal is one thing, and we've seen the consequence. Well, it's contributed. It wasn't. The clubs aren't blameless. The RFU isn't blameless. Premiership Rugby isn't blameless. The CVC deal is a significant contributing factor, and to move it on, Francis Barron has come out and said, just you wait, this is coming for... and there won't be clubs going bust in the same way, but there's England Rugby, for example, are massively hamstrung, says Francis Barron, from investing in rugby, including in Premiership Rugby, because of the deal, he agrees with you, disastrous deal that they've struck with CVC.
So the Premiership have done their deal, and it's a clear disaster. Anyone with any financial knowledge will know it is a disaster. It's just obvious. And the RFU copied it. And the real scandal is this. The Premiership owners did that because they have all got businesses and they're losing money, and the Premiership is basically a failed business venture. Now, there's other reasons to be in a failed business venture: sports washing, associated, just associated pride of owning a sports team can be beneficial to tangential businesses.
Holidays in Marbs.
There's all sorts of other reasons to want to own a rugby team other than making money. But fundamentally, that's what happened. People who can't afford to own rugby teams were owning rugby teams, and they mortgaged the futures of those teams so no one else could effectively buy them. Right? It's different for the RFU. The RFU own the entire game. They own the entire game. They print money. They open Twickenham and they print money. There is no reason that the RFU should be in a situation where they need to sell the family silver to CVC. Ever.
Yeah, they should not have been anywhere near this deal.
If Premiership Rugby want to do that and ditch all their history and historic brands and have all their assets go elsewhere, that's completely down to them. The RFU should never have done this. And this report by Francis Barron is so interesting because it highlights things which I didn't know about. So I think there is a potential next year that next year or the year after that the RFU will have to fork out something like, I want to say 80 million.
98 million, is it?
It's in 2028, so we're 5 years off.
Okay.
But CVC have a sole put option requiring the RFU to pay them, this is quote from Sir Francis Barron's report, to pay them £96 million in 2028. The RFU right now does not have...
Oh, no. Is this not the catering deal? So there's a catering deal as well, which is...
that is not the catering deal. That's the 2028 sole put option.
So there's also a catering deal, which I had no idea about, where the RFU...
Oh, sorry, is that for the RFU to extricate themselves from the deal? They can just pay CVC £98 million and then they get out of it? Was that
I'm not even sure if it's quite that simple. I think it might be paying off some of the investment in loose sense that CVC put into the RFU that was supposed to be spent on growing the game, but couldn't have been spent on growing the game as Sir Francis Barron sets out.
Yeah, the other thing as well is the RFU are not able to use this money as income, right? So, it says now that they're making less money than ever because, well, they're making less money because they're giving away their income, but they do have these capital receipts. So their reserves are nicely topped up, at least for the short term, but they're at risk of breaking all sorts of covenants, and it's the whole thing is just an absolute mess. Let me just find this other bit, which is really interesting. It is, capital proceeds.
At Carvana, we're in the business of driving you happy. And with the widest selection of used cars under $20,000, you're bound to find a car that'll put a smile on your face. Carvana gives you control by letting you customize your down and monthly payments. You can browse tens of thousands of cars online to find one within your budget, and you won't get surprised with any bogus fees. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to shop for a vehicle. Carvana, we'll drive you happy. Availability may vary by market.
NetJets, the worldwide private aviation leader, is known for exceptional service, for personalizing every detail and elevating every flight. Because NetJets standard is not just to meet their definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours. All by providing the custom, curated luxury experiences you deserve. Explore NetJet's premium travel solutions at netjets.com.
Cannot be used to fill short-term revenue gaps. Oh, you think? Of course it can't. Of course it can't. So that means, of course, if there's a short-term revenue gap, even though the RFU might have the money, guess what's coming? More cuts. Which makes you wonder, how do they afford all these new women's deals? We'll talk about that later, actually. There's a really interesting one about the catering.
Well, there's actually a load of... and again, you could argue whether it's the best value corporate deal, but there seems to be a load of corporate money surrounding women's rugby and stuff. It's a thing that lots of corporate people want to...
Well, do you know what?
To be involved in.
If that is the case...
Fair play.
And I really hope it is the case, right? If that is the case... It is only fair that the women's game hives itself off onto its own union and it can enjoy all of its own success. Because,
you don't want the men's game, the RFU mess draining from it.
Absolutely right. If the women are this successful, right, my advice to them would be take your game away from the RFU and have your own union and enjoy all of your money and all of your success because you deserve it, you worked hard for it. If it turns out it's just the RFU throwing money at the women's game because this is the greatest investment which we've ever seen, by a bunch of people who clearly don't know what the word investment means, well then, no, they shouldn't be doing that, should they? So, I'm highly sceptical. Yeah, they say corporate money. I've not seen any evidence to back that up yet.
Yeah.
So other things about a CVC deal is the RFU used to be able to say, okay, here's the Six Nations, you can buy that, but also part of this package will be you've got to buy, some championship games, because they could wrap up various things. Well, they don't have any control over selling that now. So they have to separate out the Six Nations from everything else. There's also a case in 2028, they're not going to have enough money to do anything like the funding deal that they've done with the Premiership. So whatever the future is for the RFU, they should be able to carry on in some form. The Premiership won't. The England funding for the Premiership will just evaporate pretty much overnight. The money that they've received from this deal, I think the headline is 100 and something million, but actually what they received up front was something like 60 million, and the rest of it is to come in the future.
It was actually 60 million less than the amount which was said, so it was like, it might have been 180, but actually it was 120, something like that.
And there's like 12 million of fees or some stupid amount which has come out of that figure. Have they thought about inflation? Because if you're going to get this in like 5 years' time, and inflation's running at 8 to 10%, that's quite a lot of money, boys. It's a lot of money
just disappearing in front of your eyes.
As all of your costs are going up, and there was no reason for the RFU to do this at all, but they did it anyway because I don't know reasons. Bill Sweeney has got to go. There's no ifs or buts now. He has to go.
I think I think basically Francis Barron. I don't want to. I think I'm paraphrasing him correctly here. I apologise to Sir Francis Barron if I'm getting this wrong, but I think from what I read, he's basically advising that anybody who signed off that CVC deal in a position of power in the RFU has to fall on their sword.
100%. And every union, actually. every single the unions had no business signing that. The clubs, fine, do what you want.
You can understand it more from the club side, because they are very financial.
Well, that's one thing
strapped.
Francis Barron says, and you said, and James Haskell sort of jokingly and very affectionately referred to us as three virgins in their mum's basement.
That is true.
And three virgins in their mum's basement spotted the issues, and so Francis Barron made the point that a decision as big as this from the union, as you've said, clubs is one thing because they're privately owned, fine, but the union is owned by its members and represented by the people in power at the union. He said, had this gone to a special general meeting, there's no way the members would have allowed it to have happened.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. And what does it tell you about how the RFU felt about their commercial team? So one of the arguments about accepting CVC money is that they'll bring real commercial expertise, but the RFU have their own commercial team. So are they just saying their commercial team are no good, that they're not capable of doing these deals without CVC holding their hand? And if they are, right, if their commercial team was so horrendously bad that they needed to give 13% of the family silver away to this hedge fund, if that was the case, what were the Premiership doing employing the ex-head of commercial, the commercial director of the RFU, to be their CEO in Simon Massey-Taylor? Because from what I can see, Simon Massey-Taylor was so bad at his original job, the RFU felt that they needed to sell, 13.5% of the Six Nations. Have I got that logic wrong?
Was that the role that he was? He's commercial director for the RFU.
Have I got that wrong? Have I got my logic wrong there?
No, I don't think you have. But what I would say
has he just failed upwards?
I think that anyone who got employed, Simon Massey-Taylor included, since the deal was signed, I don't hold them culpable. It's the individuals who presided over that deal being signed.
No, but this is just...
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, actually, from what I hear about Simon Massey-Taylor, he might be exactly one of the brighter lights, one of the slightly less dim ones, I guess.
He was
within rugby.
He joined Premiership Rugby from the RFU, where he was Chief Commercial and Marketing Officer.
Wow.
So
brilliant.
That is...
So what did he do? How did he impress the boards at Premiership Rugby? So what are your achievements?
Do you think they just saw the big pile of cash and thought that was a good... That sounds like a good deal. It sounds like a good idea. They just saw the cash. They got blinded by gold.
We've signed for CVC. You've signed for CVC. We must all be geniuses, therefore.
I just want to know what the interview... So what have you done? Well, I was so bad in my last job that my department that I ran, which was in charge of getting commercial deals, well... my employer completely ignored it and they signed a deal with CVC. I mean, is that what the interview process was?
Well, but as you've also said, the RFU prints money, so that it was a successful commercial entity. Which beggars belief why they did this in the first place.
Isn't it just? Yeah. It annoys me so much. The whole thing annoys me so much. And the RFU Council... I mean, the RFU Council, by the way, this is a great one. The RFU Council found the time to vote to remove Francis Barron's privileges. Now, this doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you're a Blazer, it's a massive deal. You've got to remember, the RFU Council are motivated primarily by free tickets. So, Francis Barron had some free tickets. Those have been removed because he's mentioned the financial mismanagement of the RFU. Well, this to me is conclusive that he is correct. So the RFU Council removed his... They found time to vote on that.
That was a flippant...
Can you believe it?
A flippant mischaracterisation. They may be wrong with some of them as a collective between them. They may be wrong on decisions that they've made as the RFU Council, but I'm sure their intentions are genuine.
I've been to the meetings. I've been to a meeting, right, and I've listened... right, to how proud they are about giving us updates from Twickenham whilst the grassroots game in Lancashire is falling to pieces. So I don't know. I don't know what their intentions are.
I'm saying out of the whole lot of them, I'm sure there's a lot of good intentions and there's good rugby people. But the point being, Francis Barron appears to have been. I don't know the ins and outs, but that sounds a pretty harsh treatment for.
Well, look, when the ex-CEO,
I don't know,
says there's been financial mismanagement, right, and presents the evidence to you, I would have thought your duty as a council might be to scrutinise this evidence and say, hold on a minute. Maybe the ex-CEO might be on something. Instead, they reconvened to remove his privileges. I don't know what that tells you, but it's not impressive, particularly when he was cast iron right.
The other side that I mentioned before, there's two reasons why I thought for the Premiership, not for RFU, that the CVC might be a good deal. One, given how bad the Premiership had been for so long, surely some other guys can be better. But number two, and this was a point that Philip Pilkington made in a totally different scenario on the multipolar multipolarity pod.
Great recommendation, by the way, that Phil.
Recently.
Great pod
Have
recommendation.
you got any podcast recommendations, Tim?
Yes.
Maybe listen to Patreon.
JB, yeah, Patreon. I'll tell you what.
Mention that on Patreon.
JB can give his podcast recommendation
Your
that he gave to me, and
I'm not recommending it.
And I would recommend it onward.
I don't want to fall off a yacht.
A fascinating listen, but I'm not going to put that here.
But Philip Pilkington, he made the point that if someone loans you money, they are not tied to your long-term success. The only metric of success that they have is getting their money plus interest. That's it. And if they have to send you to the wall, make you insolvent, send you into liquidation administration to get their money, they will do that.
Yep.
He also made the point, which is where I was at the start, which is if they're invested into you and they are then tied and they benefit through your long-term growth, that is, of the two options, it is the much better option. Now, that was where I stood, but that clearly overlooked two things. One, just how lucrative the deal was for CVC, that they don't even need to worry about the long-term success because they're getting so much cash right now that it's irrelevant. And number two, just how bad, evidently, the CVC talent who have been attributed to Premiership rugby actually is. From what we can see, and we see very little because there's virtually no statements and no news releases, they're just as bad as the previous guys, if not worse. Like, the trajectory of the whole league is only downwards right now.
There's one bright spot of the Premiership, which is how competitive the matches are, because the salary cap has squeezed squads. You've basically got this funny phenomena where having less quality...
Fewer. Oh no, lower.
Yeah, less quality.
Yeah.
Fewer qualities. No. in the squad, in the Premiership squad means you've got a more competitive league, right? That's all going to change because when that salary cap goes back up, we're going to have 4 teams that spend up to salary cap. You're going to have one team which isn't even a Premiership team, and the rest of them will be somewhere in between. And even that's going to disappear.
But it's already kind of starting because you've got the likes of Newcastle, who they will still get the same broadcast rights, the same commercial revenues as everyone else, even if they spend 1/3, 1/4, what everyone else does. So it becomes, I've said this phrase before, but it becomes a tragedy of the commons type scenario where everyone is grazing their sheep on the commons, the Premiership, to its total destruction. And in spending less, they're actually benefiting themselves short term, but making the whole product of the league worse and worse and worse and worse.
I understand the motivation, and it's with the incentives and the realities that are there. I might do exactly the same thing if I were. If I were the boss of Newcastle.
Show me the incentives.
Yep.
I'll show you the outcome.
Well, just to go back to your equity versus bond analogy, which is exactly right.
Where else, by the way, do you get this on a rugby podcast? Some people, I mean, you might be falling asleep, but bearing in mind where we're at with rugby and where we've been, you can listen back to the whole archive. There's a level of depth and layers that get peeled back and areas that get explored into that you just do not get anywhere else. Yeah. And I wish more people had listened.
Yeah, well, look, I was phoning some of the most well-known journalists in the country, explaining this deal in detail, and they're like, yeah. Okay, well, we'll just run with who's in the England squad. Okay, brilliant, thanks. Guess I'll see you around. Anyway, back to your analogy of equity versus bonds. The Premiership owners, even though they've done this horrible deal, right, they were genuine investors. When I say investors, you know when people say investors and they say, oh, let's invest in women's game, they mean spend money.
Yeah.
Of course. But actually, it is an investment. And sometimes investments lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's what the owners
might be
have done.
investing in your weekends and your fun and investing in your legacy as a name.
But then, that is really, if you say you're investing in your weekend, that's just spending.
Yeah,
there's no chance of return on that.
Right,
there is a chance that you could get 12 really great owners who get their act together, and to be fair to sales owners that I've had a fair few conversations with, they strike me as good owners, like good, competent people, right? So if you've got a load of them, I tell you, the other guy who really impressed me is Tony Rowe, right? So if you've got a load of people who, when they say invest, what it means is they put their money at risk, and that's the important part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the CVC deal does not put that money at risk. They do not benefit. Well, sorry, they have all of the benefits of a bondholder and all of the benefits of an equity holder. wrapped up. But the nasty side effect of this deal means it will not attract any further investors.
Yeah.
And previously what would happen is one set of investors would get bored, and guess what? The next guy who made his fortune in carpet warehouses or tech or whatever, wherever it is would come in and spend
franchises or whatever it is.
But now they're like, no, we're not doing that because there's a CVC deal there and it's an absolute disaster and rugby is a mess. And also the RFU is a complete and utter hellhole. So, if you add all those things together, that's why, one of the most iconic names in rugby was sold. What was Wasp sold for? Like 60k.
It was the IP was bought, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure Wasp's IP was like 30. It was more than 100k.
It's not big figures. Yeah.
So one of the most iconic brands in all of rugby, worthless. That's why no one came in to save Worcester. London Irish, that's why no one came in to save London Irish. It's because of this deal. It makes clubs uninvestable. So when this current ownership class either runs out of money or runs out of passion, and I imagine they're going to run out of passion before they run out of money, because who wants to be involved with the Premiership as each and every club fails? Well, then, it's just going to be... It's almost like it's a ticking time bomb. I said, how long ago?
5 years. 4.5 years.
Well, about 2 months ago.
All right.
I give it 5 years. I give it less.
So just on that point, Christopher Holland paid for the Wasps brand and intellectual property, so the badge, the right to be called Wasps Rugby, 35k.
There you go, 35k for Wasps. You could have picked up Wasps for 35k.
What?
There you go.
Christopher Holland, who is he?
Is he one of the former guys?
I will just rewind and say...
Is that Halo 22, his business?
Might be. I
will rewind it. Maybe it was last season, JB, you said it, but you kind of said, and it sounded apocalyptically doomsday-ish when you said this season may not finish. That was referring to last season, wasn't it? This season may not finish. And obviously you were incorrect on that, and you were incorrect on the season finishing this season, but looking back now, it's easy to see what you meant.
Yes.
And it might not be that exact outcome, but it is nearly as dire as that. And when you have clubs not existing anymore.
And if you think about all the headwinds, I mean, the most serious headwind for the Premiership is France. As that league gets stronger and bigger and better and grows organically and just starts sucking up all of this money from TV rights, they can't compete, and they never will be. They'll never be able to compete with France. So, what the Premiership becomes, I don't know. They can't rely on the RFU because the RFU can't run a bath, and they're going to run out of money soon, and they're going to run out of players because no one wants to play children's rules. So where the Premiership goes, and they can't get new owners, they can't get new wealthy owners because CVC stops that.
I think it's going to have to be a cricket type model, central contracting.
Well, that weirdly, of course, is the internal war, isn't it, between the RFU and the clubs? The RFU wants control of everything, and I would break up the RFU tomorrow. So that would be my plan.
I think now, so I've said for a while that the time to do central contracting was 95, 96, the dawn of professionalism, and I thought for quite a long time, until very recently, that the clubs had too much power to allow the RFU to leverage those players off them because they were just too important for the clubs. Now I think the clubs have so little power that... And coincidentally, the RFU has very little power, but actually they might be in the marginally stronger position of the two. Therefore, you could actually see the some kind of central contracting being done.
They'll take the wages off the clubs, which will help them.
Yeah.
They get the players when they want.
It is same with Ireland. It's same with England. It's same with them all, right? You can take these players, you can put them on central contracts, but as long as that French league is growing and getting stronger and stronger and stronger, like there are players that should really be playing for New Zealand or Australia. And the draw of France now is getting so powerful that people are forgoing their international caps because you get guaranteed, Jack Willis. Jack Willis? Yep. Yeah. Jack Willis. He is eligible to play for England. But if he plays for England and he played for a club in England as well, he would probably earn as much as he is in Toulouse. So do you just take the Toulouse money and play in that mega league and it's guaranteed? Or do you take the risk of not getting picked for the international team when there's absolute animals like Tom Pearson and Tom Curry and Ludlam and Ludlow and all and Underhill, all fighting for your shirt. No, you'd stay in France.
Yeah, take the money.
Take the money.
Now, interesting. So, there's a lot of Australian players. There's relatively few Kiwis. New Zealand is still... one of the most notable ones would be Sir Charles Piatow, who came over and took the money. And there's been a few who've been on the kind of periphery.
Paul Heyman was the first to say, yeah, enough of this international nonsense. I'm going to go make a load of cash.
Yeah, that was towards the end of his career.
No, because he did it when he went to Newcastle, and then when he went to Toulon.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Done. I don't know. I mean, is a player like...
There's not that many.
Is a player like Charlie Faumuina still a guy that could play for the All Blacks if he was there?
Possibly.
I think he's a marvellous player.
He's retiring now, isn't he?
Yeah.
But there's not many. New Zealand have managed to do okay in retention.
They pay very well, and they let players go off.
Well, they let them do the 6-month sabbaticals in Japan.
Go earn some corn.
Get mega money. And those players, those sabbatical deals in Japan, if you're, for example, Bowden Barrett or Richie Mo'unga, and you wear the All Black 10 jersey, the Japan money will be astronomical.
And their domestic Super Rugby season, as we've just seen, is condensed within a very small window that actually...
15 weeks, 18 weeks.
Yeah, so the next battle, right, is going to be, if central contracts were to come in, if you think of the RFU pie, it's split like 50-50. So 50% for the grassroots clubs and 50% for professional. It's not split like that, but let's just go with that.
That was always the principle, but it's now more like 70-30. But yeah.
Well, whatever it is, just let's imagine for ease of argument, it's 50-50, okay? Because they've got two jobs to do, allegedly. Now, if the England squad cost them 50%, and that France money keeps on pushing, they don't need to play in France. They just need the wages to go up and for the wage inflation of players worldwide to go up. If that goes to 60%, well, where does that money come from? Oh, well, it comes from grassroots. What if it goes to 70%, 80%? So when they talk about growing the game, it's so disingenuous because they'll tell you, if you get on the phone to Bill Sweeney, as I have, and you talk to him about the game, he'll say, oh, we're really successful because there's more women playing, there's more disabled rugby, there's more mixed ability, and there's more touch rugby going on, right? All of these things just... all that really matters in terms of the England squad is, are there more eyeballs and is the men's professional game more profitable? Because if it's not, they're going to end up spending more and more, or a larger and larger percentage of that England money for grassroots on the professional game. All those professional players are all going to leave the country and play somewhere else. And
just to add to that the eyeballs and the men's playing, and are there more kids playing at low level, because you want the biggest possible funnel to attract the most possible talent falling into that funnel. But
the game that they play with us in, the media, loosely speaking, saying we are growing the game. Because look at all of these different people that are playing. It's great. Look, there's more community rugby. But if it's not growing the commercial pie, which keeps the England players in England, then that pie, which funds all the community, is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Or the slice of it is. Mm-hmm. So that is going to be the next battle. Do the RFU just let all the players go? Do they keep 5 of them? Do they keep 10 of them? I don't know what they do.
Yeah, and I think undoubtedly, whatever the right option is, which might be logical and sensible to many people, the RFU will do what the WRU have done and pick an illogical...
Yes.
Which actually harms them in 2 directions.
Compromise in all the worst areas.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You force the best players to come back as the WRU and take spots, pay more than you should be paying for the players to come back and take the spots of the talented youth coming through.
It is so stupid, isn't it? Yeah. It is so stupid to want George North to come back to the Ospreys when Northampton were paying him.
We can see that now. It's just, it's so obvious. Do you know what? Well, that's a pretty exhaustive conversation about that. It was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. But you just mentioned Sir Charles Piatow and reminded me we've got an email here, contact eggchasers@gmail.com, from Mark, who's in Japan, listener in Japan. He says, hello, gents, love the pod, blah. I'm away with work currently, and I should be on the flight today to Tokyo. None other than Sir Charles Piatow and his beautiful wife are on board. They say behind every great man there is a great woman. Expressed how beautiful she is, then great woman. He says, but anyone who can cope with 3 children who are 2 or under on a 17-hour flight via Doha is
Wow.
worthy of deep respect.
Wow. There you go.
The Premiership loss is Japan's gain, and Tonga are looking pretty awesome backs-wise for the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
They are. And Mark,
it is exciting to see what's going to happen there.
It really is. And Mark also said outside this, tough week for his dad, Peter, who suffered a stroke. It was a class fullback in his day with Hampton School and RAF Cranwell. And he said, in any event, can you wish Peter a speedy recovery and thank the Stroke Association and the Bauer Foundation for the excellent work they do picking up the pieces after these life-changing events.
Get well soon, Peter.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pete, get well soon, fella. I hope you're back up and running soon. And thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And listening while you're... And emailing us while you're enjoying yourself in Japan.
Absolutely.
And working hard, no doubt.
No strong zeros.
Maybe just
away.
one.
Yeah, maybe one. Yeah.
Just take the edge off.
Well, I mean,
just one.
it's unlikely you're going to get to 2, isn't it? So.
Just, whatever you do, don't. No matter how much you think it's going to enhance the edge being taken off, don't open a second.
As the free trade agreement between the UK and Japan,
Yes,
maybe we can
there
get
is.
strong zeros at reasonably priced.
I honestly think, in the same way that we relaunched the Negroni, that strong lemon zero sales in the UK must have doubled through us. I mean, I bet they were minuscule before we got involved, and I bet they're slightly less minuscule now.
Yeah, marginally.
More, like 6 or 7 pounds a month sold, maybe.
Yeah, I've still got a few in my.
Have you?
In my cellar? Yeah, I've got about.
Is that in case of the end of
4 cans.
days? Like,
Yeah.
like if Russia attacks, we crack open the strong lemon zeros.
Every time I've had a bad day and I go down to the cellar to like, get a beer, I'm like, has my day been bad enough to crack one of those?
No, it hasn't.
Not yet. Not yet.
That's like some people have that bottle of wine or champagne or something that they save for a very special occasion. You have your strong zeros for a real shitter.
Well, the Russians have landed.
Yeah.
Will Vernon,
It really will be.
Yeah, Will Vernon also got in touch, contact eggchasers@gmail.com, remarking on the Champions League final, bearing in mind what we talked about with the Premiership Rugby final, the Champions League final. He said, can't believe people actually tuned in, given that both teams were wearing various shades of blue.
What? What did the colourblind do? Did they just not go? Did they just not watch?
I assume.
How did they get so many fans?
Actually, I got back to Manchester from London last night, and I got.
You're in blue today, Tim. Is there a reason for that?
Well,
Big City fan.
Stockport County fan. where most Stockport, where,
So
where
cool,
most
isn't he?
Man City, where most Man City fans are from. Anyway, I got back into Piccadilly Station from London yesterday evening, and it was about 10 o'clock, and I couldn't get a taxi because there was thousands of City fans just streaming into town.
Really?
Couldn't get a taxi, so I hopped on the tram. And it was mad. The Manchester Library was lit up in blue. Massive crowds of people everywhere. Even the tram driver was like, he was either a City fan just like buzzing, or he was a United fan going, I want to get home,
Get out
out
of the way.
You know, though, like, it's so easy to be dismissive of football fans. It really is. And last week was the FA Cup final, and obviously City won that as well. And I was watching this young lad cross the road, shouting to no one in particular about how the city is blue and it's ours tonight. And like, oh, okay, big deal. But like, it does mean a lot to these people. It is cool to see it happen in Manchester, even though it's quite annoying in some guises.
Well, did I tell you when we were in Glasgow the other week, they were celebrating the.
Oh,
I think I might have mentioned
Celtic,
this.
was it?
Celtic won the league again.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
I think they won. Someone said that Rangers have won one more domestic trophy than Celtic now in terms of like cups plus leagues. So Rangers still in the lead by 1. But
Next year, big year. We should go to
Do you
Glasgow
know who
next
else is
year
in
for
the lead by 1? Novak Djokovic.
Yes,
Oh,
he is.
yes.
Absolutely, I love that man.
I do.
I love that man. He's a hero.
Talking it.
But in Glasgow, there were some young lads. We were walking across shortly after the final whistle. We were walking across town. There was loads of Celtic fans setting off flares and dancing on bus shelters and doing everything else they want to do. And there's 2 young lads, like 15, 16, in front of us, and there's one bloke, mid-20s, not wearing a Rangers shirt, but clearly a Rangers fan. And as these 2 young lads walked past, he was like, "Enjoy your night, lads. Enjoy it. But just stay safe. We wouldn't want anything bad to happen to you." I was like,
Right, so.
So, was it you, Jay, Well, you might have been together actually on the day that City won their first league title and
Yes.
pipped Man United in
It was
the
amazing.
final moment
yeah.
So Manchester United fans sprayed champagne all over the bar,
with about
Yeah.
2 minutes to go.
and then Aguero scored. Aguero!
Aguero!
And then, so these bottles of champagne were amazing because I was in the Royal Oak pub, and it is obvious that they have not sold champagne there for a long time. The layers of dust
No,
on these bottles.
it was just a very special vintage, JV.
I actually thought, right, if I had any sense, I should have bought up all those bottles because they're clearly from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Like it was probably, like I say, a vintage year. But yeah, one set of fans was United fans. They basically won the title, so they sprayed the whole pub with champagne, and then Aguero scores. Legend.
And the City fans went and did the same.
Yeah. But the best part was the City fans had their champagne first, and then Jibril Cisse equalised for Queen's Park Rangers. So then the United fans went to get their champagne, and then they sprayed it, and then Aguero scores, and then it goes wild. It was quite something.
Oh, dear.
Simon Dickinson, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. He says the subject title is Supporters of Irish Wasps and Worcester, and he's basically saying, do you have any sense or idea, or if you were in their shoes, what would you do next season? Would you just give up on rugby completely? Would you switch to another team, or would you go down to the amateur version of the team in the case of London Irish? Like
I don't think
Wild
you've got
Geese?
any options. I think you just give up on rugby. I hate to sound like that guy. Look, I'm lucky because I live on the border with Wales, and I think I can play one more season under adult rules. You don't want anything to do with this new rugby, which the RFU are pushing.
No, we're talking about being a supporter of an elite team.
Well, do you want to go and see children's rules? I wouldn't. I mean,
You can go and watch, if you're West London, you can go and watch some of the teams that play in the Championship.
Championship. I go and watch a Championship.
Ealing's just about like half a mile from where.
That is a great shot.
From where London Irish play.
Go watch one of the Championship teams. Who's still in the Championship?
Bedford.
Yep.
London Scottish.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got
Richmond
if you
to be confirmed.
Yeah, if you're West London, go and
got Richmond,
pick one of those.
Ealing, London Scottish, maybe Richmond, don't know. You've got Nottingham, Bedford, Cornish Pirates,
So I went to see,
Doncaster.
I went to watch
Amptill.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what you. I think that's what you should do. I think you should go and watch it if you can. Go watch a Championship team because you don't really want to just go to a different Premiership team. Unfortunately, the amateur game won't.
Well,
What is it?
I would say that yes, watching the game is one element of it, but if you want that kind of clubhouse feeling, I would say go and have a beer in your local club.
I can't be supporting it because that's what they want, isn't it? What they want is to disassemble your game and for you just to quietly accept it. Quietly accept it and just,
Well, you mentioned
down,
Wales.
carry on coaching, carry on supporting the game, grow the game. No, the answer is no.
You mentioned Wales, by the way, and we got sent an email here.
Liars.
Contact eggchasers@gmail.com, and it says, I'm trying to find it now. Oh, man, where is it? Well, basically, I apologise to the person who sent this, but basically it looks like Wales are starting their consultation process on the tackle hype. So
Yeah, I wish them all. I wish them the best of luck.
as for Greg Bateman, the last one, Chris Dyson, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. Last week you were asking, I wonder what Greg Bateman does.
I know what he does.
Yeah,
He has a beer company.
indeed.
Yep.
So Chris runs a pub in Leicestershire, and he says that we love our craft beers here. He hasn't mentioned the pub. He should have mentioned which pub it was.
Yeah.
Give him a shout.
Yes.
But anyway, Greg Bateman has his own brewery called People's Captain.
People's Captain. Go and buy Greg Bateman's beer, People's Captain.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
And he was playing rugby in Wales, has now stopped, focused on his brewery, and yeah, Greg is...
Do you know what he used to do before he became a rugby player?
He looks like a hod carrier.
No. You will not get this.
Go on.
He sold HGV drivers training courses.
Really?
Yep.
I'm taking one of those
Oh, you
Are
really?
you?
so that I can drive my dad's motorhome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Because it's been reclassified as, and he's had to get extra strong axles or whatever because it's just over 3.5 tons when it's loaded up with,
Humble
with
brag.
water and stuff. so because my license doesn't have that on it because we're
Why would it?
Well, no, because it does if you're like, I think if you're like 45 or over.
Oh, does it?
You get Class C as a automatic.
Yeah.
Automatically, it's on there with your driving licence. But you have to. So I've got my theory test on Thursday.
Why don't you just go the whole hog and get the maximum licence that you can drive?
The articulated lorry now.
Yeah. No. Not just articulated lorries. Go for tanker driver. Just go all out.
So yeah, I'm doing that. So I know loads about the theory test questions.
Well, Greg Bateman would back in the day. Greg Bateman would have been your man.
Cool. And Andrew, just Andrew P. Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. He's got a little YouTube link for you, Phil. He said, please make sure Phil finds this, as I found it helped me tremendously. And it's top tips on the new Legend of Zelda game.
Oh, yes.
Here we go.
Now you're talking.
He has requested a weekly update on how you're getting on. He says,
how are you getting on with Zelda?
Perfect off-season content. So how are you getting on with Zelda?
I've been trying to avoid doing the main storyline, but I went for the first dungeon. So I've done the Ruto area. So there's the sorry, is it Rito or Ruto? The bird dungeon in the sky in northwest Hyrule. And I'm levelling up quite nicely indeed.
Good. Does that mean anything to you, Tim?
No, I'm just looking at this little pro tips video though and gameplay, and
the stuff that you can make is absolutely ludicrous. It is very, very good fun.
You still surf on your shield? You
can shield. So if you can fuse a minecart to your shield,
this is ludicrous.
So there you go. We'll have another update of Phil's Legend of Zelda quest.
Yeah, and I'm not spending as much time as I'd like on it, but I've probably sunk, in the last month, I don't know, maybe 30 hours or something like that in it.
I can't believe you found 30 hours.
Genuinely, a lot of it is on the train.
That's not a bad use of your time.
Yeah, I tend to, if it's in work hours, I tend to do some work. If it's out of work hours, I tend to just chill, either sleep or play a bit of Zelda.
Yeah.
All right, let's return to a little bit of rugby before we're done then. And Super Rugby is the playoffs as well.
It is.
You caught a bit of this, Phil.
I did. A couple of beatdowns. Good game between the JB's beloved Blues and Brad Thorne's Reds. Also, the Brumbies and the Canes was a good game. Yeah, there's two beat, the Chiefs and the Crusaders. I watched most of the Crusaders game. That was a bit of a beatdown. Yeah, for the drawer. Blues pumped the Tars. Yeah. So apparently the Canes game came on to a last minute try which never was given. It wasn't. Yeah. Now I have seen it. As a Canes fan, you can't really complain because their tackling was too soft for much of the game. They conceded so many easy tries, but they scored or got the ball over the line. And it wasn't given on the field, and the decision was not to overturn it. Now, if that was given on the field, there's no way on earth it would have been overturned against. Yeah. I think it probably was, on the balance of probabilities, grounded, but you can't complain. There was also one where you don't do it in the 80. Geordie Barrett, 5 metres out. Yeah, it's shortly before that. Yeah, shortly before that. But Geordie Barrett, all he had to do was pass to Proctor, I think it was, outside. He'd just pop the ball. And he tried to take it himself and didn't score. So yeah. He butchered it. But and as a result, off the back of that, Dane Coles has come out and retired. That was his last game. Really? Yeah. Huh. Is it flat retirement? Or flat retirement for Canes? Retirement available for the World Cup. Yeah. But you got the Blues went through, Chiefs went through, home to the Reds, like you say. The Double Dongs pumped the Drua, who've had a good season in fairness. Yeah. And it was quite an entertaining game. Yeah. It was a bit. It's funny watching that game because the Drua, they wanted the most open game they possibly can. It was when they were offloading and playing multiple phases that they kind of had a chance. As soon as it went down to scrum, kick for the corner, I think the first 4 Crusaders tries were all forwards tries because they were just grinding it out. Yeah. And the Crusaders can play wide as well. They're an exciting team. But they were going to win that game by grind. Yeah. So the semi-finals are the Double Dongs against the Blues on Friday morning, and the Chiefs against the Brumbies on Saturday morning. It'd be nice for an Australian team to win it. They won't, but it'd be nice if they did. Yeah, I think it's going to be New Zealand final. But it was seconds away or millimetres away with that last try from being all New Zealand semi-finals.
Yeah, right.
So I think the Brumbies have done well to get here.
And we're in the penultimate week of games in the regular season in MLR as well.
Okay.
And it's not been a good year for my boys Nola Gold.
Your poor Nola Gold.
They're going to miss out on the playoffs. But the names are wicked. So the New England Free Jacks, the New York...
By the way, New England Free Jacks have got great kit.
Yeah, they have got great kit.
Great kit.
New York Iron Workers.
Yeah,
that's a wicked
that's
name.
The one, isn't it?
That's such a great name. Old Glory DC. They're going to go through in the Eastern Conference to the playoffs. And then you've got San Diego Legion, Seattle Seawolves, Houston Sabercats. And the other names that I haven't mentioned, Nola Gold, best kit in rugby. Chicago Hounds. See, there's teams in cities that we want to... We've talked about this, haven't we?
I know. And they still play normal rules, and
Atlanta. We could go and see Rugby Atlanta and visit the... they don't do their podcast anymore.
No.
No, sadly not.
Life moves on. So anyway, and in the top 14, the final, which is next... Is it Saturday night?
Yeah, it will be. It's next weekend.
Next Saturday, 8 p.m.
Oh, nice.
What are you doing next Saturday?
Great question. Oh, do you know what I might be doing? I might be going to Colwyn Bay Rugby Club to the centenary dinner.
Oh, nice.
So I'll see if I can get it on the big screen.
Nice.
Scott Quinnell is talking, and Sean Holly is talking.
Cool.
So
That's a
be
good...
Yeah, two
nice,
good gets.
Nice little duo. Well, it's a big club, mate.
Toulouse v La
Evidently.
Rochelle. Where is the final? Did Toulouse get home advantage? No, because La Rochelle finished top, didn't they?
Surely it's...
No, did Toulouse finish top?
Well, no idea.
Oh, it's at the Stade de France.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Obviously, yeah. Oh, that's going to be tasty, that.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Isn't it just?
Wow.
I love the stat from the European Cup final when they faced off, and La Rochelle had the two biggest players, but Toulouse had the bigger pack size. Jesus
It feels
Christ.
a bit like one of those. So Leinster have the better of Toulouse. La Rochelle have the better of Leinster. Does that mean Toulouse have the better of La Rochelle?
Well, it did in the European Cup final.
Yeah, exactly. In a bit of a...
Yeah. I'd quite like La Rochelle to win it. I like La Rochelle. I like the kit. I like what O'Gara's doing. I don't know why I like O'Gara. It's like... Maybe I have this wrong, but it's like supporting the bad guy. I don't know why. It just feels like people don't like him for some reason. And I do.
I really like him.
I love him. Yeah, he's great.
He talks so much sense.
Yeah. That's probably why people don't like him.
He is a rugby savant, isn't he?
Yeah. He understands it. He just understands stuff.
Yeah.
I can't wait for next year with Stuart Lancaster going to Racing. When the rubber hits the road, I cannot wait for this. It is going to be a fascinating appointment.
It will be very, very interesting. He's back as head man.
Yep.
He's got no one to blame up, nowhere to hide.
You can't just have... Well, he can have unlimited players. He's going to have to fix that pack. That's what he's...
That's priority number one.
So if he fixes the pack, I just don't see him being able to do it. I don't see him being that kind of coach. I can't wait.
If it was purely decided on kit, two iconic kits, I think Toulouse. The kit that they were wearing this weekend,
yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, excuse me.
It was so nice with that little white collar and the absolute classic black and red.
It is
beautiful.
So there's still rugby to talk about. We'll be back next weekend talking about it. Do you want to just very quickly touch on the thing you wanted to talk about as a springboard into...
So we will talk about this further in the Patreon podcast, but Gareth Thomas has the audacity to... by the way, who is the journalist that wrote this story?
Nick Powell in the rugby...
Who is Nick Powell? And why is he so bad at his job? Generally, why is Nick Powell bad at his job? So Nick Powell has written a story about...
Keep the focus on Gareth Thomas.
No. Let's do them both.
Okay.
Let's do them both, right?
Are we doing this on Patreon pod or this now?
Let's give the headlines of it.
Yeah. Gareth Thomas is, without doubt, the scumbag of the hour, right? But for Nick Powell to write this story and then give a sort of like some background as to Gareth Thomas is in with the NSPCC, he's done this, that, and the other for gay rights. Gareth Thomas has completely abused his position as a gay rights activist to ruin the life of his ex-partner. He is far more dangerous to the gay community than Israel Folau will ever be. So Nick Powell is simply bad at his job. It's an awful article. It's disingenuous. But again, it fits the narrative. I mean, it's just it's not For an organisation as good as a rugby paper, this should never have been written. And we'll talk about why on the Patreon podcast.
Yeah, it was a headline in the rugby paper. Falau call was TV turn off for Gareth Thomas. And the first paragraph, Gareth Thomas, quote, refused to watch the Barbarians.
Yeah, and then maybe you should go on to say Gareth Thomas was accused of some pretty heinous crimes against his ex-partner. Gareth Thomas also weaponised an HIV charity. Gareth Thomas was accused of lying to the press. Gareth Thomas is not a good role model for gay men in rugby. In fact, he's probably done more damage than anyone else.
Yeah, and we can talk about this more, but I would say that Gareth Thomas is entitled to say that, and Nick Powell's entitled to publish that.
No, but Nick Powell should put the proper context.
I was going to say, but what sticks in the craw is the visceral response to one element of this story, as we talked about on last week's podcast, and the wide berth that Gareth Thomas is being given by broadcasters.
Since
media.
retiring, Thomas has gone on to be a major advocate for gay rights. Has he? When it suits him, yeah, sure. But where was his advocate?
Yeah.
Sorry, his advocation, if that's even a word, for his ex-partner's rights.
Yeah.
NSPCC campaigns to give support to young people coming to terms with their sexuality, and later fronting a BBC documentary about homophobia in football. He is not qualified to talk about these things anymore. He is persona non grata.
All men are equal. Some men are more equal than others.
Yes,
George Orwell.
That is true. But thanks for that terrible piece, Nick Powell. Don't call yourself a journalist.
I don't know how you're going to top that, mate, but patreon.com/EggChasers and let the boys play.